Yeah, no, that worked for me.
All right, all right, all right. So I got my guy Dallian here. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate it.
Good, good. I'm happy, bro. I'm happy. We're celebrating your first closed deal. Heard you made about 7,000, bro. How does it feel, bro?
It's been a long time coming, man. You know my background a little bit. I tried to start this some years ago, like 5 years ago. It didn't necessarily work out, but the skill set stuck. And I think my conversation with you a few months back just kind of stirred it back into me to actually get it started on my own again.
Mhm, mhm.
And I wouldn't be here without the guidance, man, the mentorship, and just you playing a big role in just our relationship. Honestly, man, I think that's been key. Is just that mentorship. So I definitely
Yeah,
gotta give you your flowers like heavy.
no doubt. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to hear it, man. I'm glad we connected. So just for everybody that doesn't know you, bro, I know a little bit about you. Tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and what got you interested in wholesaling initially.
Yeah. Honestly, so I grew up in Detroit. Went to the University of Kentucky from 2015 to 2020, and within that period, I just worked a lot of jobs while I was a full-time student.
Mhm,
And I just knew that that wasn't a situation I wanted to be in for a long period of time. It's like, being bogged down by just having to work my butt off,
mhm,
having one source of income or just from a corporate standpoint. I knew that I wanted to get into real estate. My thought process was to be an agent, but while I was a full-time student having to work all these jobs, it just didn't make sense. I didn't have the
mhm,
financial means to do so and be a student at the same time. So I came across wholesaling. I was looking for something that I could do from my dorm, from home remotely. And
mhm.
wholesaling was one of the first things that came up, and it sparked my interest immediately. So I I didn't immediately jump into it, but I did a lot of research on it, and I would say probably a year or two after that is when I finally did have the financial backing to dive into it.
Okay.
Um, so
Let me see.
quickly, I lost you
Okay.
for.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I think I heard that. Okay, so I think you kind of got into the second question. So when we first met, where were you in your wholesaling journey? Like, what had you done up to that point, and what were your like biggest doubts about wholesaling when we first met, when we first got connected?
Yeah, when we first got connected, man, I was fully separated from wholesaling at that point.
Mhm,
Because I had just had some poor experiences working with other wholesaling companies as an acquisition specialist, where I was able to close deals for them, but things just kind of fell apart. And I think ultimately it just showed me that I need to be doing this on my own. So when we met, something about that conference and everything that was going on. Obviously, I was working for a property management software company at the time, so
mhm,
I was in real estate. I was getting enough of that fix where I was comfortable, but I still was missing a piece of fulfillment that I needed for myself. And
mhm.
so, obviously, when we met, we had a conversation for hours, completely separate from real estate, and
Yeah,
I think that was God telling me that now is the time to do it because
right,
you just met this person and built such a solid relationship with him, and he's on a path and has done this to the extent that you can pour some trust into him.
right.
Uh, and so, like I said, I was fully separated from him when we met, but you literally sparked the fire in me, bro.
Thank you,
Um,
bro. Yeah, oh, good to hear.
and I mean, from there, I took steps that I had never taken before to get this thing started. So.
Right. Okay, so I guess it sounds like you just answered that, but I was going to ask you, what was the turning point from being completely separated from wholesaling to believing that, okay, maybe I can close my first deal? What was that? When was that turning point for you?
I think the biggest thing is that I was in a position where I could pour money into the business. I could put together a marketing budget. I could
Hmm,
structure my processes and put all the pieces in place that I needed to do it in a way that would make the most sense for me at that time.
hmm,
But I think our conversation about your drive and
hmm,
your why just had me really deep in thought about what I wanted from my life
hmm,
and what I know is possible with this. with putting the right pieces in place, I think it was just all the pieces just aligned right in that moment. And I was like, I got to do it. I have to
Yeah.
come do it.
Yeah. So before we get into the actual deal, that sounds really great, bro. And I'm really happy, bro. This is like a full circle moment from first meeting you. I knew it was gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I knew it was gonna happen, but full circle moment. So was there ever, before we get into the deal, was there ever a moment where you felt like giving up? Where you're like, bro, I told him, like I knew this wasn't gonna work for me. Was there ever
Mm.
any moments like that? If so, how did you get through it?
Honestly, man, I felt that to an extent early on, but I think it was more of like questioning the confidence that I had diving back into it just based on our initial interaction. Like
Mhm.
for a second, I was like, did I make this decision too quick? Like, despite my ability to do it, did I make this
Mhm.
decision too quick? Is putting the time into this really what's best for me right now?
Mhm.
But I think I just started to pull myself back into my why, and what I want to accomplish in my life. And as soon as we firmly got the structure of the process in place, I was
Mhm.
like, okay, now this is working out. Because I think I was just like, I tried something out and it didn't work out as expected. And I think that happens sometimes, things don't always work out as expected.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I mean that's why I carry my faith with me so heavily because you got to remember that it's God's timing and it's what with God's guidance you get to the places that you get to, not
Absolutely. Yeah.
is what you want to do. So, having conversations with you about consistency, sticking with something for a few months at least before you just try to jump ship, I think that stuck with me heavy.
Yeah.
Because we obviously tried something, and then I was like, I don't know if this necessarily gonna work out the way I want it to. If this pace is not what I need it to be, and so we made that shift. And then once we made that shift, and I locked in on that consistency, that's when I was like, okay, I'm seeing what I want to see now.
Right. Okay. Okay. So sounds good. So let's talk about the deal, bro. This deal, man. I remember it, but let's let everybody know, where did the lead come from? How did you find the seller? Like, how did this come about? This first deal, bro.
Yeah, so like I said, just putting all the pieces in place together. So it started with Deal Machine. Deal
Mhm.
Machine allowed me to filter out specific lists. It's like your typical prop firm or whatever, batch leads or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I found a list, skip traced it. The list was specifically tax liens or tax
Mhm.
delinquent, uh, vacant, out of state owner, and I would say pre-foreclosure and probate were added into that list as well.
So a stack list for
Yeah,
sure. That's a good stack list.
great stacked list. And it was in Detroit. That's where I grew up at.
Mhm.
And so, using Deal Source, I filtered out that list, exported the list, and put it into REI Reply.
Mhm.
Uh, REI Reply is powerful, man. It's powerful.
It is.
It allowed me to be um, pretty hands off. I didn't have to be cold calling consistently. I set up automated text messages and just blasted them out, as much as
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah.
And just staying consistent with that in and of itself allowed me to be talking to a lot of sellers, getting a
Mhm.
lot of responses via text, a lot of negative responses, but a lot of good responses. This is my property. Are you interested in
Right.
buying? Why do you want to know? Whatever the case may be, just looking for any way in to be able to have that conversation about why you may be interested in selling. So I came across the seller. He just simply expressed that he was looking to sell the property potentially. And I think the first thing that I did, honestly, was reach out to a bunch of buyers. I think that was a
Mhm.
key step for me is reaching out to and networking with a lot of people in the Detroit market. So whether it was going on Zillow and looking at sold properties and then reaching out to a realtor or the owner that did sell the property,
Yeah.
getting a feel for what's going on in that particular market because Detroit's such an interesting place. You know this very well.
For
It's a
sure.
block
Yep.
by block type of city. It's not like neighborhoods or counties.
Yeah.
It's a lot more specific. So I definitely had to do a lot of research and just connect with people in the area. So reaching out to buyers and Facebook groups. There's one Facebook group that I've been keeping up with for years that
Mhm.
literally property has an Excel sheet that allows people to put their information on there, buyers specifically, like flippers, realtors, wholesalers, whatever the case may be. If they're looking
Mhm.
for properties, long list is hundreds of people on there. And then there's another Excel sheet for specifically for wholesalers.
Mhm.
So I've always kept track of this buyers list, and I would just run through it. Like just
Mhm.
I email blasted a bunch of people. I wish I didn't get too many responses on that, but when I called them, I got a hold of a lot of people. So I built a small list of about 10 to 15 people within that area.
Mhm.
And through those people, they connected me with other people. So I connected with one guy. He connected me with two buyers.
Mhm.
I'm getting an understanding of their criteria and what they're looking for. And when I found the property that I was able to get under contract, I knew what people to call.
Got it. Okay, got it. So yeah, I mean, most people would say, and I think I've told you this before, like, let's stick with the deal and then do the buyers. But it sounds like you made good use of your time. Like while we were setting all that up, it's somewhere where you grew up already. So you were just really pretty much doing market research,
Right.
connecting with buyers, connecting with realtors, connecting with investors. So it sounds like it gave you a lot more confidence once you actually started running the campaign and you got something like we're about to talk about the seller now. You already knew like this is a good deal because I've connected with these people,
Right.
which was a good use of your time. You know what I mean? So what was the seller situation specifically, and like how did you build rapport with them? Like how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, honestly, OG, real cool dude. He
Yeah,
was
I
just
heard.
sitting on this property. Yeah, you heard him.
Mhm.
He was just kind of sitting on this property. He wasn't living there necessarily, but he was just kind of back and forth, just kind of storing things in the property. And he's been in this space for a while, so he spoke the language. He understood
Mhm.
going on. There wasn't much beating around the bush. There wasn't
Mhm.
much of a need for me to, explain the process and all of that stuff. He had worked with some wholesalers before, so he was familiar with the process. But
Yeah.
I think what was key for me is just kind of finding some alignment in what we had interest in. Early on, he talked to me about a recent interest that he started to dive into with day
Hmm.
trading options and stocks and stuff, and that's something that I'm passionate about myself. So, I mean, we before we even really got into the details of the property, I mean, we got into almost a 2 hour long conversation just talking about trading, man. Like I said, you heard him. He
Yeah.
couldn't stop
That's
talking about
major rapport, bro. Major
it.
rapport. Yeah.
That was key because, like I said, he had worked with some wholesalers before, and he told me straight up, he was like, "I worked with another guy, and we had barely even scratched the surface of our relationship, but I was ready to move of the relationship that he had built with me, but he
Mm.
was ready to move forward with this guy, and then things started to fall apart. Um,
Mm.
and he himself said, I just didn't feel like I was comfortable working with this guy because
Mm.
he wasn't really trying to like get to know me."
Right. Just wanted the
So
property. It was all about the numbers.
it was all about the numbers, and the numbers
Hmm.
didn't even make sense. So that was a problem in and of itself.
Hmm.
And so he ended up backing out of an opportunity with another wholesaler. And so, yeah, I mean, what was key to that was just finding some type of alignment in our interest. And thankfully, he had vocalized that early on, and it allowed us to just build on that and build on that. So I think that was extremely helpful. Yeah, I mean, that was key right there.
So I mean, yeah, like I overheard a phone call, bro. It sounded like two friends talking, to be
Yeah.
honest, for a while. But like it all came down to business of the deal. What was the final contract price? And then what did you end up selling it to your buyer for?
Yeah, so the final contract price was 23. I was trying to get him at 20 because he
Mhm.
initially had accepted 17, and then like I said he had a change of heart and didn't want to work with the dude anymore, and I guess like I said, he's familiar with the area. He's been doing this for a while, so he knew he can get a little bit more. I
Mhm.
tried to hit him at 20. We ended up negotiating and making it work at 23. And
Okay.
so I had one of my buyers that I had already had in place. He had went to go see the property already, um, and he was gonna give me an answer after speaking with his contractor a few days later.
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know how I feel about waiting a few days later. I'm trying to get this taken care of. I got the seller pretty interested, so I want to try to lock this in. Um, and so based on that buyer going to see the property, that gave the seller the confidence that I was really about business. And
You were
so,
on it. Yeah,
yeah,
you did things like exactly when you said you were going to do it right away. You didn't waste any time.
exactly. And so
Hmm.
that same day that I sent him the contract, that morning the buyer had went out there to see it. And after I sent him the contract for the 23, he signed it immediately. Uh,
Hmm.
and so the buyer got back to me probably over the next day or so, and said that the opportunity wasn't going to be the best for him. It was his first fix and flip,
Hmm.
and he didn't feel confident on that particular block. So I'm like, okay, the guy that I was pretty confident in wasn't
Hmm.
ready for the deal.
Right.
But I still like the numbers though, and so I posted it in Facebook on Facebook Marketplace. And immediately I had people reaching out immediately. And so probably the next day or so after that, I had another guy reach out to me. And that following morning, he went to the property and called me back immediately. Was like, we want it. And I had it listed at 30K. So he took it at the price that I had it listed at, which, had me in my head, like maybe I could have listed it for a little bit more. But
It's
it's my,
all learning lessons, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
all my
a
first deal.
big key. Yeah, go ahead, my bad. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's my first deal, so I'm not complaining. If you weren't ready to
Yeah,
take it
yeah,
for the
yeah.
price listed at, then that's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, a big key, I don't want to skip over that because that's a big step for wholesalers is like when you have a good deal, you feel like it's a good deal, you've done your numbers on the area, and that first buyer tells you no.
Mhm.
That like derails so many wholesalers, bro. Like, oh my God, this is a bad deal. If one buyer said this, then most buyers must feel like this, blah, 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 blah. So like you jumping in and putting it on Facebook Marketplace, getting it in front of more investors and more in front of more buyers, and then him reaching out to you, you said within like a day and
Hmm.
going out to the property is huge. Like never give up. I don't care if 5, 10 people tell you it only takes one person to go
Right.
out there and see the house and want to buy it from you. But yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, looking back, could you have put it at like, I don't know, 32.5, see what
Really?
happens, bro?
Yeah, a little bit more. It could have been a
little
10K
bit.
deal, but it's
But
cool
this
though.
is super valuable to get this done fast
Hmm.
on the seller's timeline. So how long did it take from initial meeting the seller to like closing, which happened, I think, last week?
Yeah, the closing happened last Friday. I got the contract over to the seller on the 5th of March.
Okay.
And I set the close date for the 27th actually. Um, and
So 3 weeks?
yep. And so the buyers were so ready to go. I built such a good relationship with them. They were so ready to go that they were ready to close as soon as possible.
Right.
Uh,
They could have
so
closed faster than that.
they could have closed faster than that. They were so ready to go.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I think the delay was really on the title company, honestly.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, it worked out. So I mean, from the 5th to I mean, what was the date on Friday?
Think on the 22nd. So I'm calling it 3 weeks, roughly 21, 22 days,
Yep, the
which
21st.
is which is crazy, bro, to make 7 racks, bro.
Yeah.
Like we can't skip over that.
That
That's a
before
lot, bro. That's a
every.
lot, bro.
Mhm.
And so looking back, Dalian, what's the biggest thing you think, whether tangible, intangible, what's the biggest thing you think you learned from this first deal?
Um, the biggest thing I think I learned definitely consistency.
Hmm.
That's one of the biggest piece I know. Like I said, you poured into me a lot on that early on.
Hmm.
And I think that was foundational for me to get to this point. Um, I think that's the biggest piece because I got a property under contract last month and
Hmm. Hmm.
properties value even the property's value was less than the repairs.
Yeah, yeah.
So it didn't work out. That was
Hmm.
the continued sentiment. And it would have been very easy for me to be discouraged specifically because when I first started this a few years back, um, the first property that I got under contract was the exact same situation.
Hmm.
Property's value was outweighed by the repairs that were going to be needed to put into it. So I couldn't get a buyer that would bite on it, and
Hmm.
that's discouraging. So for that to happen for the first property I get under contract, starting this back up again, I could have easily
Hmm.
been like, man, I don't know about this. I could have made
Here we go
adjustments.
again.
You feel me? Here we
Hmm.
go again. I could have shifted my market. I could have shifted my strategy. I could have done things differently just off that, but. Consistency was key, man. So just staying the course, following through with all the pieces that were in place, and letting the results speak for themselves, man.
No doubt, no doubt. So, how has this first deal changed like your outlook, whether it's your future in real estate or honestly, I know you personally, but just your future in general, like what's possible? How's this first deal like changed that, if anything, for you?
Honestly, it just enhances my thought process of what can be done in this business.
Hmm.
Um, I know there's so many different avenues to take, but I've always seen value in this, and I've seen people have success in it, and have been motivated by that, especially when it comes to you.
Mm,
Uh, so to have crossed the finish line, my thought process is like, let's just do it again. Let's
right.
do it.
Run
It
it
just
back.
it fuels that fire. It fuels that hunger in me to just keep going, and be able to just repeat the process.
Right. Okay. Okay. Last question, but before we wrap up. So thinking back to how your mindset was when we first met, like what advice would you give to someone in a similar situation as yourself, or if they're just struggling to get their first deal,
Mm.
struggling to like find a coach, struggling with the idea of coaching, what would you say to somebody if they were in that same situation you were in just a few months ago?
Find people to work with, network,
Hmm.
and build. Not even like build a community, man. Just start with networking, and once you find at least one solid person who has the same values and the same vision that you do for what they want to achieve in this business,
Hmm.
work with them, align
Hmm.
with them, because they're gonna be your source of motivation. They're
Hmm.
gonna be a solid source of guidance, especially if they've done it before. Ideally, you
Right.
want to find somebody who has done this before, because they'll
Hmm.
they'll walk you through those steps and get you to that exact same point. Uh, when I first jumped into this, I bought a whole program, and there were all of these, like, there was gurus and stuff, and there was this
Hmm.
community, but like there was no one that you could access on some real like one-on-one deep, like, I care about you and your success, and I'm in your success, and I'm intentional and I'm genuine about that. There was none of
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So despite me having the foundational knowledge, I didn't really have people in my corner that I could reach out to and rely on for help. And
Hmm.
so that, I think, is the biggest key for me. And the game changer is like I said, we first met and we hit it off talking hours about nothing that had to do with real estate.
For
So I
sure.
knew right off the bat from there that this was a genuine guy. This was a
Hmm.
genuine guy that actually cared about people, and you care about helping people.
Hmm.
So that's why I didn't hesitate when I dove
Yeah.
into your program and your mentorship, is because I already felt that from you completely outside of anything real estate related. So I think that's the biggest piece there, is just find at least somebody that you're comfortable with and confident in,
Hmm.
that has your best interest in heart and really wants to pour into you and get you to the same point that they're at. Or
Right.
if you are at the same point, work together to be able to get to that point. I
Right.
was doing it all by myself before. That this has been a game changer for me.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to hear this, bro. Like, yeah, I agree with all of that. Like, I took for years, I was by myself, when I started this, and I had success, but it's just like I wish I would have found someone sooner that could have saved me a lot of time. Because when you're by yourself, solo mistakes either cost you a lot of time or a lot of money, or both
Yeah.
sometimes, which is crazy. So, yeah, man, I'm glad we linked up. Congratulations, bro. How does it feel? Just one last minute. How does it feel? You planning a vacation? You just going to do a nice dinner, a weekend? What's going on? You gotta celebrate, bro. What are we doing to celebrate, bro?
No, I had a ton of thoughts, man. I had a ton of thoughts, but I had to treat my girl to dinner for sure, because
Yes,
she
sir. Yes, sir.
with me throughout this process. She was a part of when
Nice.
I first started to try to do this. So she didn't seen the ups, the downs, the downs, the downs, and have finally seen me be able to come out on the other side. So I definitely had to
Mhm.
treat her, pay off some debt, man, get some of
Yeah. Yeah.
that debt taken care of. But I think just pouring back into the business, and again, just repeating the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dallian, congratulations, bro. We'll be doing this again soon on your second closed deal, man. Thanks for the talk, bro.
Of course.